Hello, and welcome to the revised P1 Lighting Panel Board Overview Brain Chart. Today we'll be going into all of the product offerings we have with our revised P1 panel boards, as well as all of the programs we offer around this product line. Here we have an overview of what we'll be covering today in this brain chart. To begin, we'll give you some background on what exactly is an RP1, what does that mean, and how does it fit into the Siemens portfolio. Then we'll branch into the applications for this panel board, and then wrap up with some specifications and details as well as selling features of the product. And then if you need any additional information, we included some support information at the very end of this presentation. So what is an original P1 or RP1? Well, it is a lighting and appliance panel board, in particular the smallest and most popular one that Siemens sells. Typically it's used in commercial applications, and here in a second we'll show you where it fits into a typical electrical distribution system. First though, a little bit of terminology of original versus revised P1. So in 2015, we revised our P1 panel boards to offer some new features and benefits for our customers. So the design prior to 2015 is what we refer to as our original P1, and the design after that 2015 mark is our revised P1 or RP1. So one important thing to note is that all of these P1 panel boards are labeled as P1s, but just sometimes we refer to the new one as an RP1 for clarification purposes. So now let's figure out how this RP1 fits into a typical electrical distribution system. We'll do this by running through an example where a customer may have medium voltage equipment on site, such as medium voltage switchgear. So in this case, that switchgear takes in the utility power and feeds a transformer, which will then step that medium voltage down to a much more manageable low voltage, typically 480 volts or 208 volts in the United States. At this point, the power then comes into the switchboard, which acts like a distribution system to all the lower loads. Now at this point, we reach the focus of our presentation, lighting panel boards, or the RP1 in particular. And so the RP1 acts as kind of the last line of defense before your power gets fed into your lighting and appliances. Here we can see our P-Series panel board family that Siemens offers. The methodology behind this is a stepped approach. So as you step from P1 all the way to P5, you see an increase in the capabilities that we have. So our P1 or RP1 in this case fits the majority of lighting panel needs in a cost-effective package and is our smallest of all of the panel boards we have to offer. You can see off to the left we have the footprints laid out for each of our panel boards, and so you can see our P1 fits into the same family of enclosures as our P2s with a width of 20 inches and a depth of 5.75 inches. And obviously we'll have more enclosure options, which we'll go over here in a little bit, but you can see it in comparison to the other panel boards is much smaller and much more cost effective. Here you can see another breakdown of all of the panel boards in our P-Series family. Once again, today we'll be focusing on our P1 or RP1 panel boards, so that is in this first column here. And one thing that you can notice is that we have the lowest ratings available for our P1s, and it's also our smallest size. And while it is the smallest of all of the panel boards, we do find that it meets most of our customers' needs, so it is a very popular panel board and our highest seller within this P-Series family. In general, our P1 panel boards can fit any application that requires a 400 amp or lower main breaker or main lug, and can use either all BLBQD branches or all XGB or 3VA41 branches. And so this is an important note, so if you need to mix and max breaker types between those two groups, then you'll have to move up in panel boards to at least a P2. And we find that Even with these specifications, we are very flexible and able to meet most common specifications. So what that means is you can find these RP1 panel boards in many different spots. For example, it could be in a strip mall, helping to power items there, or powering all the lights in an office building, and many, many more applications, anything that can fit those specifications mentioned earlier. Overall, we find that our P1 is the largest volume panel board that we sell as Siemens, with 80% of all panel boards being these P1s. So in 2015, as was mentioned earlier, we started to include more options in our P1 panel board, and that's what we refer to as the RP1. And so all of those specifications that you can find today are listed here. To start out, our main lug panels range from 125 amps to 400 amps, while our main breaker panels can go all the way down to 100 amps and go up to the same 400. And the branch breakers that we can include in these P1s range from 15 amps to 125 amps. And just like was mentioned before, these are in either a BLBQD format or an XGB format. Next, our maximum number of circuits available differs a little bit between our 250 amp and 400 amp availabilities. So 250 can range from 18 to 66 circuits, while our 400 amp ranges from 30 to 66 circuits. And another thing to note on these branch circuits, as you jump from say 18 to 30 circuits or 30 to 42 circuits, you're also adding 6 inches of height to your panel board. So when you look at a panel board in general, and in particular these RP1s, you can notice 3 main areas pretty much right off the bat. And those are our main sections, our branch section, or sometimes called unit space, and our subfeed section. Overall, our RP1 offers several different options in each one of these sections to try and be flexible and meet customer needs. So we'll go into detail about all of our offerings in each one of these areas. To start out, we'll go into our main section. One of the first things that I want to make sure to specify on our RP1 panel boards is the difference in main sections as you jump from 250 amps up to 400 amps. And so as you can see here, the main section increases as you go from 250 to 400. So you're taking up much more space with the 400 amp main section, and with that it drives all of the enclosure to be larger. So you can see a 30 circuit non-feed through 250 amp enclosure is 32 inches in height, whereas that same offering in 400 amps jumps all the way up to 56 inches. So that's one important note right off the bat on our main section and the differences from 250 and 400. There are several different options available in the main section of our P1 lighting panel boards. Most commonly, you find that our customers need either main lugs or main breakers, and so we decided to make our P1 field convertible from main lug to main breaker, which is very useful if you need to make some adjustments on the fly at a work site, or if you're building a panel from scratch, which we have a few programs in that area which we'll mention here in a little bit. But we can convert from one to the other with our kits, which you can find here. So our lug kits are on the top table, and that's either for our main, or you can also use these as feed through. And also we have our breaker mounting kits on the bottom. 2 other main items on this main section that I want to hit on are that our 400 amp has a new 750 kc mil main lug only option, so that allows you to use some larger cables. And so this is for our aluminum offering, and our copper cables are still limited to 600 kc mil. Finally, we noticed that these P1s need to be used as service entrance equipment every once in a while. So we have service entrance barrier kits available so that these panel boards are suitable for use as service entrance equipment. And these kits are mentioned here on the bottom right. So that pretty much covers most of the options that we have available in our main section. So now we'll branch over to our branch section, or sometimes called unit space. and go over all of the offerings that we have in this. The first and probably most important thing to note about our P1s in particular are that we have two primary branch breaker section formats. These are our BL-BQD format and our XGB or 3VA41 format. And so you can see here in the two pictures in the middle the differences between these different branch sections. And so as you can tell, all of the circuits on our P1 panel boards fall into the same format. So if you need to use, say, a BQD breaker and an NGB breaker, you cannot do both of those in a P1 panel board. So if you're configuring a P1, you need to keep all of your branch breakers the same type, so that way you can use a same format for all of these. If you need to mix and match, then you'll have to be driven up to a P2 panel board. Overall, we have several different options available in our unit space. First, when we redesigned this P1 panel board to the RP1 in 2015, we were able to extend circuit options up to 54 or 66 circuits. And so this allows us to reduce project costs by eliminating either the need for a second P1 panel or the use of a P2 or P3 panel. And so this allows us to reduce costs because, as you can see off to the right, if we were needing to drive up to a P3 panel board, that would dramatically increase our enclosure sizes. So having a smaller enclosure also leads us to having a lower price, which is a nice benefit. Also in this unit space, our neutral system is field upgradable to 200% capacity and or to not branch neutral capability is field installed. So you can see our neutral lug kits in all the tables here below. Now that we've covered the options available in our branch section, we'll transition over to our subfeed section. Now, while our main sections were different sizes as you jump from 250 to 400 amps, our subfeed sections actually remain to be the same size. So you don't have to worry about a jump in size as you jump in amperage here. One really nice thing about the subfeed area on these P1 panel boards is that you cannot include it. So our non-feed-through panels actually reduce panel height by 6 inches. And you can see some photos outlining the differences on the top left here. Our feed-through panels, though, can include feed-through lugs, a subfeed breaker, or a surge protection device. And so the way our catalog number is impacted is that these panel boards will have a catalog number ending with a T, while our non-feed-through versions will have a panel number ending with an N. And so our feed-through areas can include most common options without increasing in box height. And speaking of box heights, our enclosures are broken down here at the bottom in this table. And so one cool option is that you can increase our circuit from 30 circuits to 42 circuits. And if the 30 circuit, for example, was a feed-through and the 42 circuit is a non-feed-through, those actually use the exact same sized enclosure. And so this trend continues as you jump up in circuit size. So now we'll go over the 3 different options for devices that you can put in your subfeed area. The first of these options is our lugs. One important note about lugs is that our main lug kits can actually be used as feed-through lug kits. So that's one nice flexible option that we have there. The next grouping of devices is our breakers. So you can choose to have a subfeed breaker kit, and one cool note similar to the lugs, for our 250 amp and lower main breaker kits, you can also use them as subfeed breaker kits. And finally, the last grouping of options to put in your subfeed area are our surge protection devices. And so, just like was mentioned, these are the 3 groupings of devices that you can put in your subfeed area. If you'd like to see a more expansive list of all of the specific offerings that we have for our subfeed area, you can check our SpeedFacts product catalog. And so that concludes the 3 different sections that we hit on before. And so most of these are referencing the interiors and the different capabilities that we have there. Here we have an exploded view of the entire panel board. And so now I want to go into a little more detail on other parts of it. So in particular, we have different options available for our enclosures, as well as our fronts and trims that we want to hit on. And I'll also mention a little bit about our dead front filler plates. First off, we'll branch into our enclosures. As you can see here, we have 4 main types of enclosures, and these are broken into NEMA Type 1 enclosures, which are our base, NEMA Type 3R, which are more outdoor enclosures, NEMA Type 12, or Siemens 3R/12, and finally our NEMA 4 or 4X enclosures. And we'll go into detail on each one of these individually. First, let's discuss our NEMA Type 1 enclosures. These enclosures are constructed for indoor use to provide a degree of protection of the equipment inside the enclosure against debris such as falling dirt. This is our most basic offering that we have for these RP1 panel boards. But along with this offering, we have several different options to help meet your needs. I'll go over each one of these options and how they affect our catalog numbering system. So, the first thing to point out is, as you can see here, the box height can range from anywhere between 26 inches in height all the way up to 74 inches in height. And so you can see all of those are listed throughout this table. One thing I want to note is that our P1 and P2 panel boards fit into the same series of enclosures. And I also have noted on here P3 panel boards, which have an additional offering of 80 inches. The next option that I want to hit on is that we are able to paint these enclosures if you would like. And so our standard enclosures are galvanized steel, but if you want to add on ANSI 61 gray paint, all you have to do is add a P onto the end of those panel board catalog numbers. Next, you can also increase the depth. So our standard depth is 5.75 inches, but if you add a D into your catalog number, you will increase your depth to 7.75 inches. Another adjustment you can have is our standard width of the enclosure is 20 inches, but if you would like to increase that width to 24 inches, all you have to do is add a 24 to the beginning of the catalog number. The final option that I want to hit on today is the option for knockouts. So by adding a K onto the end of your catalog number, you will have a galvanized steel enclosure with end walls that include knockouts. One other cool feature is that we have field installable end wall kits with knockouts, so if you want to add on these knockouts later on, you can just buy one of those kits and install it in the field. Now we'll move over to our NEMA Type 3R enclosures. These are constructed for outdoor use, primarily to provide a degree of protection against rain, sleet, and damage from external ice formation. So these are a little bit more heavy duty than our Type 1 enclosures. And you can see we have a standard 20-inch width by 5.75 inches in depth, and we can increase either that width to 24 inches or the depth to 7.75 inches. And we have varied heights available as well. Now let's go over our next step up in enclosures, the NEMA Type 12 or Siemens 3R/12 enclosures. These are very similar to our 3R enclosures in that they're constructed for outdoor use, primarily to provide a degree of protection against rain, sleet, and damage from external ice formation. But as you can see on the picture off to the right, we have some additional provisions made to protect against things such as circulating dust, dripping, and light splashing. So you might notice that we have a gasket around the door to help add on the additional protection there. With these enclosures, we have the same range of offerings from 26 inches to 74 inches in height for both our P1 and P2 panel boards. We also can increase the width to 24 inches or increase the depth to 7.75 inches. One important thing to note on the difference between our Type 3R and Type 12 enclosures is that these Type 12 enclosures are actually treated as a standard stock item, while our 3R enclosures are a custom item. So, if you're working on a project where you have some lead time concerns and you're wanting an enclosure for outdoor use, you'll probably want to stick with your NEMA Type 12 or Siemens 3R/12 enclosures because they'll be better on lead time than your 3Rs. Finally, we'll go over our NEMA Type 4 or 4X enclosures. These provide protection against a lot of different options that the other ones didn't. So here we are able to protect against splashing water, corrosion, windblown dust and rain, hose-directed water, and even damage from external ice formation. So these have a lot of different options for protection here. And so you can see these are a little bit larger with our NEMA Type 4s at 8 inches in depth and 24 inches in width. So you can see these also increase in width up to 36 inches and increase in depth to 10 inches. And so those are all custom part numbers there, which is a big note. And also we have NEMA Type 4X non-metallic and our normal NEMA Type 4X options here. So one thing to note is that these will be typically a longer lead time item because a lot of these options are custom. Alright, so that concludes all of the different options that we have for our enclosures for these RP1 panel boards. Now we can look into the fronts and trims. So our standard trim you can see off to the left is our fast latch, and we also offer several different other options if you need to meet more demanding specifications. So you can see the 6 off to the right, and we'll go into detail about each one of these now. Here we have the details of our fast latch fronts. These are our standard fronts for our RP1 panel boards, and so as you can see here they are constructed with 14 gauge standard steel or the UL approved equivalent of this. Another thing that I want to mention is that these come in 2 main styles. We have both the surface version and the flush version, both of which are available in our unassembled panel board program, which I'll mention here in a minute. But a little bit about those 2 different types. So the sides of the surface front are formed to provide a tight fit around the sides of the enclosure and eliminate the edge from protruding beyond the enclosure. So that's the main difference about the surface front versus the flush front. Another thing that I want to mention that's a big customer feature on these fast latch fronts are that we have hooks on the bottom of the front for easy installation. So that'll help the customer when they're actually on site installing. It makes it much easier to have those hooks on there to help with aligning the front. And the final feature that I want to hit on these fast latch fronts are that there are no screw holes on this design, which is completely intentional on Siemens' part. The reason why we don't have screw holes is that it adds an additional layer of security. So if you lock up this front with a key, then you are the only one that has access to the parts inside of it. So there's no one that can come up and unscrew the whole front and have access to everything inside of your panel. So that additional security feature is what we were intending for there. All in all though, as you can see here, we have several different options for these fast latch fronts. They range in height from 26 inches to 74 inches, just like our enclosures. You can have the surface or front flush styles. Also, you have the ability to add on a metal card holder. And then finally, we have several replacement parts available for you, which you can see at the bottom of this page, a lot of which fall along that locking up the front with a key. While our standard fronts are our fast latch fronts, we realize that there are several different needs that you have out there in industry. So we have these 6 optional fronts also available for you. So on the top left you can see our screw to box, top middle is our hinge to box, and top right is our door and door. And so these provide just a few different variations of a front that you may need to meet specifications out there in the real world. Also, on our 3 at the bottom, you see those same options, but with piano hinges instead of your normal door hinges. And so, one important note on these piano hinge options is that stainless 304 is available, but stainless 316 steel is not available. So in some cases, such as working in a kitchen environment where you may need something high-end such as stainless 316, we do not have that available as an option. One final note about all these optional fronts is something you can see at the top and how their catalog numbers are affected. So our flush fronts have an F to start out their catalog number, while our service fronts start out with an S. If you need to increase width from 20 inches to 24 inches, you just need to add a 24 onto the prefix of this catalog number. And finally, if you need a metal card holder on these fronts, all you have to do is add an M on the end, and you have that catalog number available to you. Hit on some of our compliance features regarding our UL 67 compliance. Beginning on January 1st, 2017, enhanced UL 67 safety requirements have taken effect, applying to all panel boards and load centers with service equipment applications. So basically, this addition to the code is explaining what is suitable for use as service entrance equipment. So this part of the code is attempting to reduce the potential for any accidents while actually servicing the equipment. What this is telling us is that if a panel board is being serviced, it needs to have barriers in place, so a person in the field servicing the equipment cannot make accidental contact to live circuit parts. So Siemens wants to be compliant with this UL 67 code, so we have created several service entrance barrier kits, which you can see below, which allow our panel boards to be suitable for use as service entrance equipment. One important note though is even with these protections, Siemens still recommends turning off and locking out all power supplying these panel boards before working inside them to avoid any potential hazards. As I'm sure you've noticed throughout this brain chart, and as you can see on the catalog numbering system off to the left, there are many different options for configuring a panel board here at Siemens. As a result, we created a Compass Go tool, with Compass standing for Configure, Order, Manage, Price, and Ship. And this is an online-based platform for creating a custom panel board to fit the specific needs of a job that you're working on. And so this is designed to take the minimal number of inputs from you depending on your specifications for a project, and it will drive down to the most cost-effective option that fits all of your requirements. And so this is a great user-friendly tool that we hope will add value to your projects moving forward. So while we do have the Compass tool to allow you to meet any specific specifications that you have for your current job, sometimes we realize you just need a panel board right now. So that's why we created this unassembled panel board, or a UPB program. So this program allows any distributors that take part in it to provide same-day availability of unassembled panel boards that are an exact match with Siemens factory assembled panel boards for at least our most popular systems. And so the price you have to pay of having these panel boards be extremely available to you and at site on distributors is that we only have a few different options available within this UPB program. We tried to hit on the most popular though. So we have 3 main voltage and systems available, which you can see listed here. Also, we have only a maximum of 54 circuits, so we don't have that 66 circuit option that you have in our factory assembled. Also, non-feed-through variations are not available, so that 6 inches of space that we mentioned earlier by not including that feed-through area, you don't get that in this UPB program while you do in the factory assembled. And finally, we still have the 2 different branch section formats of BLBQD and XGB, so that remains the same even in this UPB program. So while we do have several restrictions on what's available in this unassembled panel board program, as you can see here, there are still several options for you to make. On the left, you can see our wide array of interiors that are available in this UPB program, and on the right, you can see all of the different main breaker kits. One thing to mention is that we also have main lug kits available as well, in case you want to make a main lug only panel. One final note here is that authorized UPB distributors can configure a P1 panel and compass, and if the configuration is suitable for the UPB program, it can be quote-unquote unassembled, allowing the distributor to supply parts needed for the contractor to assemble, and or may be able to assemble the panel for the contractor if requested. This typically provides a much shorter lead time than a factory assembled panel, and is another great benefit that we have here with the UPB program. Finally, we have a lot of accessories that you can see here. So we have a ton available for purchase, and I just wanted to bring some of them up to your attention here. You can find all their catalog numbers in the column to the left and their descriptions off to the right of each one of these tables. And so you can see the complete offering of these accessories in our speed facts. And finally, we have a wide range of filler plates available. So these filler plates are required for any breaker openings without breakers to meet UL and other safety requirements, whether that be in unit space or the main or subfeed area. Here we have field installable kits available for most filler plates needed in case of loss or damage in the field, as well as the ones that come whenever you're configuring a panel board in Compass. Customer support can also be contacted if needed for any unlisted filler plates that you don't see here. But overall, these are our complete offering of filler plate accessories that we have. As mentioned, customer support can help with any specific additional needs. And that pretty much includes all that we have for you in this RP1 Overview Brainshark. If you would like some additional material though, we have several different options listed here. First, we have our SpeedFacts product catalog, and you can find this online at the link listed, or you can also get a hard copy of this version. Next, we have other panel board Brainshark, so you can see a list here of the link to find other panel board Brainsharks and learn more about other panel boards within this P-Series family. Next is our Siemens Download Center, where we have a lot of our collateral, whether that be flyers or selection and application guides or whatever you may need. You can find that in that Siemens Download Center link. And last but not least, we have our panel boards website, which is online at usa.siemens.com/panelboards. That'll link you to a lot of useful information on each of the different offerings we have here at Siemens. Here we have some additional support information listed. So for customers, distributors, sales, and others that have more technical questions about these panel boards, you can reach out to the following links or the phone numbers listed below, and they will provide support for your technical questions. Also, as you can see in the blue box on the bottom, Compass also has support that you can access, so you can reach them at their own direct support line. Finally, if you aren't able to find the information that you want in this Brainshark or any of the supporting material listed on the last page, here we have Tony Perini, who's the current Lighting Panels product manager. So he covers not only just this P1 panel board that we covered today, but also P2 and P3, as well as our column type C1 and C2 panel boards. So you can reach out to him if you have any additional questions. Overall, that concludes our panel boards Brainshark for this RP1 panel board. I'd like to thank you all for listening and have a great day.